Alpha and Omega came looking for them and couldn't find them, but when he did, he realized what happened. Alpha and Omega was upset for his favorite turned against him. The Alpha and Omega asked what is going on. I was trying to forgive you and give you a chance to be a god over the humans. Now they know you're the devil. The Alpha and Omega identified himself away from the devil and was upset for now the humans know who the devil is. Alpha didn't want them to know him by that, for he was going to crown him the god named Lucifer, and he was going to be ruler of this world. The Alpha and Omega understood that the humans were deceived, so he gave them the power to identify negative and positive upon themselves. And just another pause, if you would, just to explain a little bit more. At that time, for the human beings were not total fault, but they were deceived. God gave the human beings the power to identify themselves, but they had to do it by themselves. They couldn't be totally in God's control, and because that wouldn't be too much of a fairness. You know what I'm saying? So instead of destroying the human beings, let's see what the humans will do. After they found out who deceived them, which path would they take? You know, therefore life is a test. So once Eve and Adam ate the apple, God gave them the power of choice and the chance to identify what is negative and positive amongst themselves. For an example, if they like Lucifer's way, then they'll go that way. If they like my way, they'll come my way. He pointed out the snake, and then he pointed out who the higher power is, that they have the right to decide what is right from wrong, but that the humans have a little time to choose, for sin was open on earth and will have to be destroyed. In this story, I want to point out God's love, power, and forgiveness. That even though what happened between Lucifer and God, he still forgave and created a heaven on earth with followers to be under Lucifer's name. But because Lucifer's heart was hardened, he backstabbed God and now tainted as a snake and deceiver. And because sin is now open on earth, he has to destroy and rebuild. Also, I wanted you to understand that because Eve and Adam ate from the tree, that sin is in the DNA now. But because they were deceived, that God gave them the right to identify right and wrong amongst themselves. Third story, the humans, the devil, and the formation of religion. Years went by and the humans began to emerge in the land called Nod. There was a human named Nimrod, and he was a powerful being. He fell into sin and went about his own rule and way of life. The devil lured him into doing so. He then began to build a world against Alpha and Omega. When Alpha and Omega saw this, he told Nimrod not to do so. Nimrod disobeyed and did what he wanted to, so that the humans that helped and forced to build wouldn't be in trouble with Nimrod. He separated the nations, for all was one at a time and spoke the same language. Once separation happened, he then notified them that they all worshiped the same higher power, but because what happened, they had to worship him throughout their differences. The Alpha created a relationship with them and told them in order to gain salvation and rather his worthiness, they would have to live, eat, and pray a certain way. This is what formed rather religion and therefore the tribes and whatnot. After Alpha and Omega told them what to do, he left them alone to test faith, patience, and knowledge. But sin was too powerful on the humans and fell into their own ways and idolism. In this story, I wanted to point out the importance of religion and how to follow God's law. God's law is explained and told to the humans to follow 6 days, and on the seventh, to come and receive. So therefore, in order to gain salvation, there's a way eating, living, and praying to receive God's worthiness. For example, after separation of nations, he created a relationship with each and told them how each was to eat, pray, and live in order to be enlightened by the Spirit, aka God. As you see today, we are not living through grace, but living through man-made laws, which is a sin. For an example, that if I'm Irish, according to early times, my tribe was provided certain meats, fruits, and veggies when it came to eating. God provided us a way of life to live in order not to be found in sin. Also, that we are to say a prayer according to our tribe's religion. In order to receive the Holy Spirit, all of these are the recipe to gain salvation. Salvation is the key to heaven, like the song said. No, you can't get to heaven without SALVAT. The fourth story, the humans, Jesus Christ, and Satan's story. Years went by, and the humans were devoured by sin to the point where the Alpha had to come up with a better plan to identify himself to the humans. He created a message in a bottle named Jesus Christ, and his blood would give the humans a second chance in identifying right from wrong. When Jesus Christ came, he gathered his and told the Alpha and Omega's message that in order to receive him, to follow Christ, Christ repeated the same message that they would have to live, eat, and pray the way that God wanted them to in order to gain salvation. The devil's heart is hardened even more at this time, for there was a time when he challenged God about one of his followers and lost the bet. So the devil didn't even notice Alpha and Omega's presence when he was on earth until he murdered Christ. The humans, the devil worshippers, and the devil himself witnessed Jesus Christ's death, and once he realized that Jesus was the sign to even save his life, it was too late. The Alpha crowned him the god named Satan and cast him away from the Alpha and Omega's creation, being the humans, the followers of the devil and the earth. For a while he's cast away, but will be released again. This gave the humans a second chance to make the right choices before Christ's second coming, the end. In this story, I wanted you to understand the power of sin, and that being the reason why Jesus Christ came to earth. Jesus Christ was a sign from God and God's last sign to the humans, within identifying light and dark that the humans are witness to Jesus Christ and the death of him. Once this happened, God turned his face against the world to prepare for the final event that Jesus Christ is now crowned Lord King in heaven and has been honored by angels we call our guardians. Beelzebub was one of the devil's followers and was taught how to deal with the humans when the devil was sentenced. Beelzebub continued what the devil taught in order to attract the humans and test them one last time. I want you to know that God is giving the humans one last chance to define negative from positive before it's too late. This is what's going on now that we are in the aftermath of Christ's death.